My name is Hannah Vu. I will be presenting a Pecha Kucha on the topic sex trafficking slash human trafficking in Thailand. In this map journal, I will be focusing on the human sex trafficking in Thailand, one of the major hotspots in Southeast Asia for human sex trafficking. Human sex trafficking is the horrifying trade of humans. Humans are traded for the various purposes. They are used like animals and resources, commercial sexual exploitation, forced labors, or even harvesting of organs. Based on my research, it is evident that the poorer the region, the higher risk of becoming victims of human sex trafficking. This is due to the lack of education and job opportunities. Thailand is recognized as the key destination for human sex trafficking. Victims are often trafficked into Thailand through established migration routes from neighboring states with significantly lower levels of socioeconomic development. Facilitated by long and porous borders, irregular migration is a common trend in meeting the labor demands of low skilled employment sectors. However, the majority of trafficking cases are facilitated by individual and local level networks of friends, family members, and former victims, and often begin with voluntary migration. Corruption also plays a large role in facilitation of human trafficking both domestically and internationally, detailed in media reports and investigative research. As seen in this image, young girls from the ages of 14 to 18 are often worked at bars, clubs, where older men attend to drinking, where they come in to drink, have fun. They are often being exposed to the older group of men. This is their entrance to the sex trafficking trade. Majority of the time, these young girls have no choice but to work in order to provide a source of income for their family. Due to the unemployment rate in Thailand, the bars are the only places that will hire these young girls. It is their way to lure in foreigners knowing that they are willing to spend money. While I was doing my research, these images caught my attention. Some of these women are engaged in sex work because they have no other way to make money. Others have been forced into the industry, and many are trafficked to Thailand from other countries. In many cases, the sex trafficking rings are small, compromising 1 to 5 women, whereas labor traffickers often exploit more victims at one time. As seen in the image, this young lady is sitting with a foreigner. Young women from these countries are being sold to foreigners without knowing what they are getting themselves into. Most of the victims think that they are given the opportunity for a better life when sold to these foreigners, not knowing it is simply just a sex trade. Human trafficking is a global issue. It happens everywhere and it's only becoming a larger problem. In 2018, Polaris reported that the amount of national human trafficking hotline cases increased by 25% in just 1 year. There were almost 11,000 cases and over 23,000 survivors identified, almost 15,000 of which were survivors of sex trafficking, and that's just in the United States. Women and young girls are at a disproportionately higher risk of being trafficked, making up for around 99% of sex trafficking victims in 2016. The epidemic of sex trafficking of children is also alarming. In reality, child sex tourism is a multi-billion-dollar industry spanning the planet and it victims almost 2 million children each year. The United Nations estimates that the industry could be worth well over $20 billion per annual, and a huge hotbed for this activity is in Southeast Asia. According to the 2017 Trafficking in Persons report published by the U.S. State Department, Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos are seeing an increasing number of cases in human sex trafficking. It is hard to fathom that anyone would volunteer to work in the child sex tourism, but many are forced into that trade from human trafficking activities. According to the 2017 Trafficking in Persons report published by the U.S. State Department, Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos are seeing an increasing number of cases in human sex trafficking. It is hard to fathom that anyone would volunteer to work in the child sex tourism, but many are forced into that trade from human trafficking activities. In Thailand, these type of trade are often called at prostitution, not knowing that federal law calls it sex trafficking. The demand for such sexual services is fueled mostly by foreigners who take advantage of the conditions of poverty and hardship faced by the families of individuals who see no way out except to sell themselves or their children to make ends meet. Therefore, the common age a child enters sex trafficking is between 14 to 16. In the United States, the Global Slavery Index 2018 estimates that on any given day in 2016 there were 403,000 people living in the conditions of modern slavery in the United States. Forced labor occurs in many contexts in the United States. In 2016, out of 1,067 potential labor trafficking cases reported to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, the largest number involved domestic work, which is agricultural and farm work, traveling sales crews, restaurant and food services, and health and beauty services. These two documentaries illustrate the human sex trafficking trade in Southeast Asia. Trafficking always involves the illegal crossing of borders. In the case of human trafficking into Thailand, human trafficking very often involves the sea and its ports. Thailand's fishing industry is worth 4,326 million United States dollars. So many ships and boats go out to sea to fish, sometimes not coming back for up to 3 years at a time. This makes it nearly impossible for authorities to monitor the activity of ships and boats, thus, many traffickers prefer to travel through seas despite the risks it may pose on the trafficked victims. Traffickers would go out to fishing areas as fishermen only to transport and sell their trafficking victims at another location. The child sex trade in Thailand has evolved in recent years as men no longer meet children at brothels but first engage with them at karaoke bars, pubs, or online, only to transport and sell their trafficking victims at another location. Sexual exploitation is the main form of modern day slavery in Thailand, making up more than half of the 191 human trafficking cases recorded by the government so far this year. 40% of the trafficked children are lured by a family member or relative, compared with a 9% for adult victims. 30 years is the minimum sentence. 59% of the victims, mainly girls and women, are trafficked for sexual exploitation globally. In Vietnam, the Blue Dragon Children's Foundation has been working with the Hue community in central Vietnam for over 10 years to educate teachers, parents, and children on human sex trafficking risks, child rights, and the importance of education. This investment is paying off with a massive reduction in the number of children leaving home and being trafficked into sweatshops in Ho Chi Minh City. Blue Dragon is now considering how we can maintain this impact by handing over anti-trafficking initiatives to the local community. From July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, Blue Dragon assisted more sex trafficking victims and survivors than in previous years. The number of survivors receiving psychosocial support on average each month increased by 94%. In addition, 220% more girls were supported to undertake vocational training, and 216% more survivors assisted to return to school. There have been many programs in place to raise awareness of human sex trafficking. A youth development approach will promote positive outcomes as well as reduce risks. January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. In efforts to raise awareness, Thailand is a beautiful country with many religious monuments, wonders, and places to sightsee. It is sad to see that such a country would be hiding such horrific human trafficking activities. Thus, we should work together to try and negate and curb the disgusting and horrific human trafficking activities around the world.